Hi guys, I apologize for the late post. Today we're going to be talking about Hockaday case study once again, tying it into our learnings from chapter 6 this week. And question 1 is describe the primary work teams in the Hockaday case. Discuss their strengths and challenges applying the text. The first primary work team that I see falls into the category of self-managing teams. The text defines these teams as a small number of people with complementary skills who are committed to a common purpose, have a defined set of performance goals, and execute an approach for which they hold themselves accountable. I think this describes the teams at Hockaday because, like I said, small number of people. They were divided into, I want to say teams of 9. I hope that that's right. And then they, their complementary skills are all trained on the same the same problems. They are supposed to know the same solutions and be trained on the exact same knowledge and information. They were given a common goal at the beginning of the case study. It was to even out the distribution of problems so that there wasn't an overload. And then the other one, I'm forgetting exactly what the verbiage for it was. I'm sorry. Anyway, though, they had to define goals in place that they needed to accomplish, and they held themselves accountable for them. They had to be available 24/7, and were able to get everything that they needed to be done. A strength to this kind of team I found to be that the individuals hold themselves accountable, so they do often do the proper job that is needed, because if they don't, then it is all on them for failing to do so. Also, they are able to cross-train one another. If one may not be able to or doesn't understand something or needs help in an area, they can turn to their team members and be able to be trained on that matter. Also, troubleshooting was a big part of what they were able to do. The whole point of the Hockaday responders was to troubleshoot issues that the clients or that the systems had. And so that was a big part of self-managing teams. What makes them self-managing is they're able to troubleshoot, and that was just a major part of what the teams in Hockaday did. So that stood out to me. A difficulty or challenge with these teams was when they did have to work together. It was present that there was tension, so it seemed almost that they were more conformed to working individually and being self-managing and self-driven and whatnot, that they were it wasn't the easiest almost for them to work together after that. Also, at the end of the case study, when the final suggestions were made for future teams, it is suggested that they do meet more often throughout the year. So I'm guessing that is to build a better basis of communication, relationships, whatever it is. They want more of that personal connection. Another primary work team that I saw to be found at Hockaday responders was geographically diverse groups or teams. I feel like this is obvious because they were indeed just that, virtual teams linked together through technology. Let's see. Strength for them being this type of team was the fact that they were able to even out the workload. That was the initial problem. There wasn't an overload of problems in all Chicago, and all the Chicago responders had to turn to that issue. The groups were instead set up so that it was someone from Chicago, someone from the UK, someone from Seattle. So it kind of built a more, I want to say, what's the word? Just evened out the workload, like I was saying. also, a difficulty for this kind of group would probably be first barriers that the culturally diverse groups bring, such as language issues that was present in the crisis when Mary had to remind them that they had to speak English because they couldn't communicate, and that is a pretty important issue because had he been able to speak his native language, he might have been able to communicate easier. Anyway, also, there's no personal relationship, which is very common with virtual teams, and not that there was any specific evidence of that hurting Hockaday, but it just is known to kind of be a negative factor of virtual teams in general. Also, there's one other thing. They have to be available 24/7. If there's a time zone difference, but there's still an issue and they need to be assisting someone else in their team, it is their responsibility to be available for them, and this could possibly cause issues with time and location differences. Okay, now for question number 2. According to our authors, what types of team roles do the various members of the virtual team play? So first, the first goal that I saw was, first role, sorry, not goal, was Jill, the CEO. She takes a role of she takes a task role in this case study, whereas Ruggiero would fall under maintenance role. Mary kind of falls into, I feel, in my personal opinion, maintenance roles as well as self-centered roles, and I'll go into that in a second. Jill specifically, her task role would be the initiator. She sets the goals for what is going to be expected. She creates a plan. She went to others to kind of get everything going, saying, hey, we have a problem, we need to fix it, and she set things into motion. Ruggiero, as a maintenance role, he is kind of there for support for Jill. He falls into a couple categories of maintenance role, I believe. He's social support for Mary, as well as he's a leader to his subordinates, the team leaders below him. He can give direction to them, but he's also a follower. He follows Jill. He does what he is told, and when it comes down to it, I believe that he would have to answer to others. Mary, she falls under a maintenance role because she is a leader. She takes things into her own hand when they needed to be done. She leads her little group specifically. But I also think she falls under the self-centered role because in the crisis, when she did tell the individual that they needed to speak English, I found that to be somewhat dominating and kind of not very sensitive to that other individual, even though she did mean the best for the company. I believe she could have handled it a little bit differently, but she just shows a little bit evidence of this role, not entirely. She's mostly found in to be a maintenance role in this virtual team. But lastly, Francois is definitely found to be in a category of self-centered role. He did not work well with the team members on some occasions described in the case study, and at the end of the case study, when he was evaluated by Jill and I believe some other top leaders, there was a couple of them, I forgot their names, but they had to talk to him about his overall negative influence on the team. So yeah, he just portrayed negative behaviors, which would make him fall into the self-centered role category. Okay, and for question number 3, identify negative behaviors in the virtual team that are discussed in chapter 6. Like I kind of just touched on, self-centered roles was talked about a lot in the text. I'm trying to think specifically more. Dominating of ideas, kind of making it so others can't share, clowning around of ideas, not taking things seriously, limiting others' abilities to perform. These are all examples of negative behaviors. It is easy for negative behaviors to influence others as well as, well, especially your own performance. If you are performing negatively, it's likely that you aren't performing efficiently, and this could not work out well for you in the future. But also this could affect your team members' work as well, because if you aren't doing your job necessarily, then they might not be able to do it. So negative behaviors are a big factor of, or a big problem in a lot of companies. And then for question number 4, were there any lessons in chapter 6 that Jill should consider? Specifically in section 6.6.1, I thought there was a good quote that I think Jill could learn from, just because culture or geographically diverse teams play such a big role in Hockaday responders. And that quote is, "The key notion is not that differences exist, but how the group engages with these differences as it works on both task and relationship issues." This stands out to me because although there is could be issues that arise with geographically diverse teams and barriers, like I mentioned before, if she's able to constructively grow from this and address these issues properly, then they could only benefit further and continue to progress and likely expand their company. If they can make it in some countries, there's no reason why they can't make it in others. So I think that would just work out better for them internationally as well as just overall. Also, I think that the topic of being aware of self-limiting behaviors would be important for Jill. I had some notes that I wanted to talk about with that. Such as the presence of someone with expertise, presentation of a compelling argument, lacking confidence in one's abilities. This is just general kind of stuff I think that managers need to be aware of in any position in any company, putting things like this into perspective and how their subordinates and employees may feel in situations such as these is important, because you want your employees to feel comfortable and want to do their best and not limit themselves. And you also want them to feel comfortable in the fact that you trust them enough to not worry about other factors. They should just have confidence in their capabilities, and you will as well. I think that is all. Let's see. My reference for geographically diverse teams mostly came from section 6.3.7 of the chapter. And yes, just to let you know. But yeah, I think that is it. All right. Thank you. Have a good night.